Hello world of YouTube and welcome to a video I don't know if I'll be making all that often, but it's a subject that I know people have talked about on the internet, myself included, and that's that opinions change. People's perspective on music changes the more that they listen to it, the more that they sit with it, and I figured I would make a video doing an update to the listening log update of albums that have come out this year that my opinion on has changed since I initially did my review. Again, I don't know if I'll make this a consistent, recurring segment. I just wanted to talk about it because, especially with this year in particular, there's been a lot of divisive releases that have dropped and that are continuing to drop. And I figured I would talk about 5 records, for better or for worse, that my opinion has changed on, and why. Now, I've already kind of alluded to this even in my score, even in my review in general, and my alternate take review. I like Sun, and I like this record a lot, and the more that I sit with this record, I don't like my score of an 8. I love the textures of this thing, I love the ambient passages, I love how detailed and nuanced and dense this record really is, and I love Steve Albini's production on it. I think it's a fucking class act album from these guys, and I keep coming back to it for something very serene with a heavy dose of noise, and I want to bump my score of this up to a 9 from an 8. I think it's so good. Even in my alternate take review, I was like, it's pretty much a 9, but I wanted to kind of cement that for sure. Sun, great album that they dropped this year, and they've got another one coming out, which is really interesting. But this first one, at least, choice fucking record, and one that'll be high up on my of the year list for sure.
Got no legs, bitch, I'm floating. Might turn into a ghost bunk.
So I gave Crash Talk some pretty high praise this year. I liked a lot of the sounds in it, and I liked a handful of the cuts and some of the messages behind the songs. But the more that I sit with this record, the more boring it really is. And the more my score has gone down a lot since I initially reviewed it. And this is actually going to be the biggest dip as far as my distaste for an album growing. Because shortly after I dropped the review, I dropped it to a 6. And the more that I sat with the more that I revisited, the more mediocre it sounded. I just couldn't help but feel my score was still too high. So I dropped it to a 5. I dropped Crash Talk to a 5 because I feel like it's good. It's a very solid record. It just has some really average ideas and some really shitty things in it as well. And I personally just, I don't know. Again, I like YG's record. I like some of the sentiments behind it, but I feel like some of the messages don't land for Schoolboy, and some of it gets a little collar pulling at points. So, yeah, I'm lowering it to a 5. Mikazuki Big Wave is such a good fucking record. Its bright, summery soundscape has been the backbeat to my summer. In a lot of instances. I don't listen to it a lot around other people. When I'm by myself just hanging or driving in my car, I'll throw this fucking record on. It's so good. I love how upbeat and bright and vibrant it sounds. I love how sunny the soundscape is, and I love a lot of the elements in here, and so I'm bumping it from a 7 to an 8. It's not going to be high on my top 50 of the year, but it'll be on there at some point, because this has been an essential piece of my summer music listening experience personally. I think it's great, I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's a good fucking record. The counterpoint of that, Undying Light, the more that I listen to it, the more that it just sounds like this banal crawl with a lot of really mediocre sounds in it, especially coming off the heels of their last record, which I think is a great example of how you do contemporary metal in a good way. This is the complete antithesis of that. This is the nuclear blastification of Fallujah, and I hate it. I hate it a lot. I hate the vocals, I hate how very undynamic the whole record sounds, and it just feels like a very mediocre metal mess. And that's why I'm bumping my score from a 6 to a 5, because I've given a lot of 6s this year, more than your standard year. And while I do think some of them are on it's kind of its own spectrum of 6.1 to 6.9, there's a lot of shit on here that's on the lower end of a 6, and Fallujah was just one of those records that the more I thought about and the more I kept coming back to it, the more I just fucking couldn't stand it, and I'm putting it at a 5. But that's probably where it's gonna sit, because it's just a run-of-the-mill death metal record. That's all it is, you know. Whereas Apoptosis, which is another record in the same genre, excelled at delivering its sounds and had a better produced soundscape. Undying Light just felt more and more mediocre the more that I revisited it, and that's why I'm putting it at 5, because it's pretty subpar. Now this record, probably one of my more tepid takes of the year. Billie Eilish is When We All Fall Asleep. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? It's a record that I've given a 6, and I've given a couple of 6s to records that have been very divisive with people. You know, Weezer's Black Album. I've got some coming up that are really going to be divisive for people. And while I still don't want to make this a higher result, because I don't think it's really solid enough to warrant a 7. I stand by a lot of the things I said in my review. The songs that I like, I do keep revisiting a shit ton. Listen Before I Go is going to be on my Songs of the Year playlist at some point. I don't know if it's going to be low or high, but I really, really love Listen Before I Go. I think it is a masterclass in a really nice, well-composed ballad, soft moment on the record. I don't want to say it's a ballad because it's a really bleak song, but it captures the sound that it's aiming for perfectly. Something that I cannot agree with when it comes to a lot of the record. I cannot stand a lot of the singles the longer they've been out. I hate that Bad Guy is a big thing, because I think the song is really fucking lame. Same with You Should See Me in the Crown and Bury a Friend. They're all really, really underwhelming pop singles. I'd rather this either subvert a lot of the ideas seen in the scene that Billie is a part of, like Zanny, create a great soundscape on Listen Before I Go, or even make a nice song with Ilo Milo, which is a single now, and I'm happy to see it getting some traction. But while I think this is there's aspects of this that are very intrinsically Billie Eilish's personality and who she is, I think that she, like I said in my review, I think she'll grow and blossom into a very interesting artist to continue to follow. I know that I've got all this noise going on, and this is probably the worst time to film. But I'm passionate about this, goddammit. I had people, the reason why I included it here, even though I'm not changing my score, is because people in the comments said that this album would grow on me. I personally just do not, I don't love it or hate it any more than I did. My passion for just how much I love what I love and hate what I hate is just grown in intensity. I'm so goddamn neutral on this record because it's got some good shit here. And that's why I want to see what Billie Eilish does next. But I just don't, I'm not blown away by this thing like a lot of people are. And I know that some of my scores that I'm going to be giving in the next month's update are going to further solidify some people's frustrations with my score of this, because I am giving 6s to records that some people love more than this and some people hate more than this. But I admire the trajectory Billie's on, and I don't think she's someone that doesn't have a place in the pop zenith or in the popular music, groupings. I think she is an interesting voice in that. And I get that's why people are really drawn to her. It's not just her image, but I personally would love to see what she does next. Like I said in my review, and that's why I feel so passionate about that. This is just an average record, because people are eating this up, and I get it. It's just not my thing, and I've had people become frustrated with me because of how I feel about this record, and I just don't. I try my best to explain why. Because, not to say it's similar, because I think Billie Eilish is better than this other group, but it's the same thing that happened when Imagine Dragons was getting popular. When Imagine Dragons was getting big, I didn't eat that shit up either, and I had friends that were like, why? Why don't you like this? Why? This seems up your alley. Because it just wasn't good. It was very uninteresting to me. And while I think that there's elements of When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go that do interest me, and I think that she has some really good, genuine artistry here, it's covered up with a lot of mediocre shit. And that's why I'm leaving it at a 6. The record I've had the most to say about I'm keeping it the same score that I had it in. I just wanted to add it here because of how passionate I am about its place in my rating of it. And I wanted to further justify that and say that a couple months down the line, it hasn't necessarily grown on me, but the elements I liked already, I love much more now. And that's going to be the video. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you agree or respect what I have to say about what I'm saying here. Let me know if you'd like to see me do this again, whether it be records from this year or years past that I've either talked about in the channel or done discography reviews of, stuff like that. Let me know in those comments down below. I'm going to get out of here, though. I've been Vowel Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations. And I'll see you another day.